Okay, Kermit Weeks here, Fantasy of Flight. I am headed off to see my Ford 4AT Trimotor. The airplane was significantly damaged in Hurricane Andrew. And after the hurricane, Maurice Hovious, who's like the leading Ford Trimotor guy on the planet, he had restored a number of them, did a lot of work on Greg Herrick's, I think the EAAs. Anyway, I've not seen Maurice in a long time. Maurice is in years 85 years old. We're not getting any younger. The planet doesn't realize that it's really been dealing with global aging. That's the big problem. Anyway, the airplane is in the back there, and he's got a lot of people here. So let's see what we've got here. Oh, great. God, you know, it's been 2 years since I was here, Maurice.
Has it really?
Yeah, we came through with the B-26.
That's right.
A couple
I remember.
years ago.
I remember.
This looks great.
Well, we have come a long ways. A lot of difficult areas, obstacles that we've had to deal with, but we've done some interesting things to it.
I love the seats, the window frame. I love these windows. I guess the passengers can actually open them and stick their arms out.
They can. They can. Why don't you come on inside?
Yeah.
Take a look.
Man, the bigger seats are awesome. Now, did you get these off the original prints?
Actually, there were no prints, but there were good photos that we had from a lot of different angles of the seats in this very airplane. And these seats are made off of those pictures. We had to proportionalize, but that wasn't difficult because we had the actual airplane here. We knew where all the lines and everything were, so we could measure off of that. And we made about 3 to 4 different chairs, different sizes, before we finally settled on this. And then we made them all just like this.
Well, this had to be one of the first and last airliners that had wicker seats.
Yeah, absolutely. The next model airplane had a caned seat, but it was not wicker.
Let's see the cockpit. It's been a long time since I've been in here.
It's been a lot happening here since you were in here.
God, this is great, and I love this Johnson bar. My other Ford Trimotor doesn't have this. I really like to put it in there for the brakes.
It makes for interesting taxiing. I actually flew this airplane a few times, and I never became as accustomed to the Johnson bar as the other pilots who flew it all the time. But they were able to get their leg wrapped around it,
Yep.
and made it work really well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Wrap your leg around it.
Yep.
Pull it back.
That's
and do
correct.
Run-ups.
That's correct.
Yeah, it didn't bother me at all. I would really like to hook it up in the Dash 5. Now, have you done anything with the panel yet, or?
All we have is a blank. We really haven't had time actually to get started on the instrument panel, but we don't want to do much to the instrument panel until we get the engine where it has to be, because our instruments, we have to work our instruments around the engine exactly as Ford did when they built the airplane, although there's not a lot of instrumentation going to be in the airplane anyway.
Well, actually, give me a little bit of a heads up when you're ready to put the instruments in, because I think this had more modern instruments when we had it.
Right.
And I would like to go back to as original as possible.
That would be great. That would be great. And I believe you have a friend out east someplace that is very good with instruments. Yeah, I think that's very appropriate.
Now, this used to have wooden control wheels, as I remember. We're still going to use those?
Yes, yes. The wheels that we made for this airplane back in 1977 were authentic. They were made exactly as the Ford wheels were originally, and I made them for this airplane, and they're still in good shape.
And it was 1977 that you had rebuilt this from an accident that was
out on the island.
Out on the island, and as I remember, most of the whole front nose section was completely crushed.
The front 20% of the airplane just really didn't exist after that accident, and we had to find other Fords, and there were very few blueprints available, of course, and we had to find other Ford parts that we could use as patterns to bring this airplane back to life again. And then, of course, it met the disaster. And
was anybody hurt in the accident?
No, actually, the pilot was hurt a little bit. He ended up with a broken ankle, but there were 3 or 4 people in the back, as I remember, who actually got themselves out of the seat and walked out one of the gaping holes in the side of the fuselage that were created from the accident, and they were unhurt.
And that was your first introduction to a Ford Trimotor? And
actually, it was our first involvement in the repair of one. I'd been following this very airplane for probably 25 years in its operation down at Port Clinton, Ohio, and I was just so taken when the airplane had the accident that I became involved in repairing it. I wanted to see the airplane fly again. At that time, there was only one other one flying in the world.
Really?
And there was a lot of incentive there, at least on my behalf, to make the airplane a real airplane again.
Yeah, I think I acquired the airplane back about 1989, somewhere around in there.
I think that's right.
And of course, after the hurricane in 1992, the airplane was significantly damaged. And, you know, due to your having worked with the airplane before, it just seemed the obvious solution to bring it up here and have you do the repair.
Well, I was out of the country at the time of the hurricane, and I came back into the country and I saw the picture of this airplane in its devastated condition, and then I found out that you owned the airplane and where it was located, and my wife and I got in the motorhome and went down and introduced myself to you, and I was really hopeful at that point that we could work something out so we could do the airplane again. It looked it looked like that there was no way it could be rebuilt, but I knew it could, and I was very eager to do it.
And I'm certainly happy with the results so far. You're going to be this is going to be the Ford Trimotor that everybody's going to strive to try and recreate.
I believe that too, and all of our people believe it, and their morale is always very high, and they're always really like to be involved in this airplane. It seems to have a special place in the Ford world, at least in this part of the world, because it lived in this part of the world, and so many people come through this door purposely to see this airplane.
This specific
Because it's the
Ford
first
Trimotor.
airplane ride that they ever took in
Yeah.
this airplane,
Yeah.
or their grandfather. And so many of the family members, first time in this, or they flew in this airplane every day when they went to school, living on the island, and this was their school bus. So many people like that near here, within 2 hours driving, that come to see the project and just keep up with it.
Oh, that's great. Well, this was the first Ford Trimotor that Island Airways bought, and I believe it was the last one that they got rid of.
That is correct.
Yeah,
That
this
is correct.
is, you know, has a little bit smaller engines, but actually could haul almost the same payload
That's-
with a cheaper cost. So.
That's right. That's right. And actually, in some ways, I think this airplane flies a little better
Really?
than the 5. Now, you have both airplanes. Maybe you could, but I have flown both airplanes, and in some cases, unless you load both airplanes, overload both airplanes, then the 5 actually is a little better handling airplane.
Yeah, let's go and look at the rest of it.
Okay. Yeah, come on out. Let me show you the wing.
Oh, yeah. God, this has come a long way.
This is the left one. We've got all the parts built for it, and we're skinning it. The other wing, we're still building parts for.
How much of the original wing is actually left in the this section right here?
I'd have to guess about 25% of it's original.
Really?
The rest of it we've built. We've had to fabricate.
And when you took it apart, I guess you found a lot of corrosion, some cracked parts.
Yeah, of course there was all the damage to it to begin with, but actually when we got it all apart, we found a lot of defoliation in the high stress areas of the spars, and we found a lot of conventional corrosion and a lot of the secondary structure. It needed to come apart, quite frankly.
Yeah, you know, really, the hurricane might have been a blessing in disguise with the corrosion.
Well, that's fact. It gave us the opportunity to look deeper into the, the primary structure of the wing. And we did find some defoliation, corrosion in there that needed attention, as well as conventional corrosion on some of the secondary structure. So it was a good thing. I mean, it was a sad thing, but it was really a good thing if you look at the big picture. Let me show you some of the other parts that we're building for the other wing.
This is another wing spar?
Yes, this is one of the spars for the other wing, and you can see to the extent that we've had to go. We've had, by the shiny rivets, those are all new. That means that this spar was completely dismantled, piece by piece. Some of the pieces were saved and then protected, you know, with the corrosion process, and others were fabricated new. The parts were new. I would say in this particular spar, probably 60% of it is brand new.
Really? And this will be for the other wing?
That's correct.
Is this the rear spar?
This is the, I believe it is the rear spar. I'd have to check and see. It's the rear spar.
Oh, this is a big, so this must be for the center section.
This is for the center section. Same thing, same problem. We're having to make new parts for the primary structure here that you see. That's part of the box section for the spar system. And there's defoliation in the original parts,
Really?
and we're having to make new ones.
Did you find any, you know, cracks where things had actually, really?
Yeah, we found numerous cracks. Nothing that I would consider really dangerous, but they were there, and they were, you know, they were growing over the years.
Well, that's
They
amazing.
needed
The
attention.
airplane was, what, how, 60 years old?
Yes, but this airplane has a lot of backup structure.
Yeah.
Nothing depends on one thing alone on this airplane. That's why, for example, it's got numerous spars in it. You know, it's a whole different concept than the airplanes that we see today.
Is this the vertical fin?
That's the vertical fin for
Some
your
of the
airplane,
skins
and
there.
these are original skins that we saved off of it and worked extensively on taking the little dents out of it so that we could keep it and
As
save
many
those
original
skins. Yeah,
pieces.
and we've done that way with the airplane throughout as much as we can. We will save original, but not where that we think in 5 or 10 years from now it's going to progressed to the point that it has to be changed.
Right.
I
Either
mean,
from a corrosion or a
that's
structural
correct.
point of view. Oh, that's great. Well, we need to be safe, but we need to try and keep the authenticity as
Yes.
the best we can.
That's right, I agree. These are parts for the airplane. These are black chromed, and those are for the brakes. You know, the Johnson bar brake. Actually, you can see the original numbers.
Oh, yeah.
These
This is
are-
an original
these
Ford
are
part.
These are original.
Oh, that's
Yes.
great.
And we've gone in and redone the inside of them, and we have now the seal kit to put it together, but we're keeping it apart until it's time, and then they'll be freshly assembled.
And these fittings go where?
Those are actually fittings that rivet into the ends of the spars, and these are the
Connect
wing
the
attach.
outboard wing to the
wing attach
to the
points.
center section.
That's correct.
Oh, that's great.
That's correct.
Now, are these original or are these?
These are original, and we've magnafluxed them, we've cleaned them up, magnafluxed them, and we did have to change a couple.
The color here, now this is this an anodyne?
Yes,
You treated the aluminum
that's correct.
with?
That's correct.
And that's for corrosion
Yeah,
prevention.
and it actually works just as well on the 17S material that the airplane was originally built with as it does to the 2024. As you can see, it takes very well. We boil them in the phosphoric acid a lot longer than we would a new part, for example.
And that's
But
for
so to
just
remove the
taking
corrosion,
out.
remove the corrosion, so that we get the correct pH factor on the surface that'll allow the anodyne to take. Now you see, we have corrosion things like this
Oh, yeah.
that you would never find if it weren't just
So
metal.
will this be scrapped, or will you
Yes,
patch that?
we will
This
make a
you'll
new
scrap
part.
this, make a new.
Because the problem is, this isn't the only place that it's about to happen. And if you go through it, you'll find other places where it's getting soft.
Yeah, right,
and it's
yeah.
about to happen. If it was just this area, we would simply repair it. But it's not a matter of damage, it's a matter of old age. And
Well, I
that's
hope
the
after it's done, it'll last another 65 years.
It will, and we're protecting it as best the technology will allow today, beginning with the chromic acid treatment that we're talking about here, and then completed with the two-part epoxy primer, and that's as good as it gets.
What do we have over here? This is another center section spar here?
Yeah, that's the next one. That's the smaller one, and we have the same problem, of course, with that, where the stress areas are. We have defoliation.
Yeah.
So
And you've had to make this whole jig here just to,
actually, this jig fixture was made by the company on the West Coast that built the two Bushmasters.
Oh, really?
And we have modified it in such a way that it works for the Ford. They were very close to the same jig fixture requirements anyway, and this one particular one came from the Bushmaster.
and what is this here?
This is the aileron attach system. It's a spar, double spar, as you can see, that actually rivets into the wing structure. And
So it's like a third spar.
yes, the loads from the aileron are transmitted into the wing through this device, and it's all brand new. The original ones were very damaged in your airplane, as well as corroded.
And now, didn't you have a problem? These
Yes.
were a little bit.
This was a weak area on the airplane. Almost every airplane that you see has been repaired numerous times in this area. Cracks occur from the load. And when we built this one, we built them with the thicker material
Oh, great.
and extra rivets and what have you.
So we shouldn't have any problem.
No,
Well, this is a long piece. This must be for the outboard panel.
that's correct. It's an outer wing panel, inner immediate spar, secondary spar. It's a full length, as you can see.
I completely forgot how big the wing
Oh,
was
it's a
on
huge
this thing.
wing. It's a huge wing. It actually, these spars, you realize don't actually attach to the center section themselves. They attach to the wing panel, and then the main spars, three of which attach to the center section. So this is actually part of the makeup of the wing.
And how many of these spars are in the outboard?
Actually, there's 5 of them. There's 3 large ones like this, and then the wee small one that goes just ahead of the aileron, and the one that goes in the leading edge.
Amazing.
I want to show you an example of some of the problems that we have that corrosion has brought. Look at the corrosion in that part. You know, there's no way to repair that, and you know that it's about to come through in many other places. So we have to make it new. And here is how we do it.
Oh, yeah.
We made a form for this and then pressed it with the press and then formed them around the edges. And then we start drilling the holes, and then we have a die that makes this imprint,
Puts the flange in
lightning
there.
flange.
Oh, that's great. Huh.
And
This is where they end up going?
This is all part of that. It goes
Actually, it
there.
looks like a, probably a fuel tank.
It's a
holder?
support for a fuel tank in
Really?
this intersection. That's correct. And as you can see, we're fabricating 100% of it.
That's great. And the, how do you actually put the holes on the flange?
The press operation is here, and you see we have the male and female die.
Oh, yeah. Oh, I see. And then he just, the hydraulic press just
That's correct.
puts the flange in there.
That's correct.
Get some free help here.
That's about it? You just release it?
Just release it.
Oh, great.
This is what looks like finished. This is the
Oh,
beginning.
yeah. Of course, that stiffens it up and
Adds a lot of
keeps
strength to
keeps
it.
it lightweight.
Right.
What is this then, right here?
This is actually from Ford. I was very fortunate to be able to locate this. A gentleman found it for me. The purpose of this tool is to terminate the corrugations. It takes several steps to do that. It actually ends up folded in and flattened. And there are just hundreds of places on the airplane where we have to do this. And of course, we're dealing with T3 aluminum, and it's difficult to get that many bends without cracking. So there are several steps that we have to take. And that's what this machine is for.
So this would be the termination, like where the skin would have like a flange, or like on the
That's
corner
correct.
of the fuselage or something like that.
That's correct. And also, a lot of the wing skin leading edges are involved in this process. It's a time-consuming process, and unfortunately, we do waste some skins. Sometimes right at the end of the process, crack will occur,
Really?
and you'll have to start
Start
all
from
over
scratch.
again and make the skin again.
And from here, does this flatten out again, or does this
No, it tucks in.
Tucks
Each
in,
one of
actually.
these tuck in and then fold out.
flattens even further?
That's correct.
And then this is
And
where the
this
rivets would
die
go.
continues further and actually make a nice roll. It's a good-looking process when it's finished.
Yeah.
You understand this is the engine that was on the airplane when it was damaged. And the engine mount was damaged here. We've cut away the areas of damage on the engine mount. And actually, to our surprise, we found the rest of the engine mount was really in good shape.
Great.
And we're going to save that and do a simple repair, which will bring these tubes on up and join into this new engine mount here.
So you're just going to do a splice, weld it?
Yeah, fish mouth type splice, and that's going to take care of the engine mount. However, we have other areas of concern. The original oil tank that came on this airplane from the factory had cooling tubes which passed air through the tank and cooled the oil.
Keep the oil cool, huh?
It helped. And the tank that had been replaced over the years had no cooling tubes, and they had problems.
Yeah, I
Cooling
seem to
the oil.
remember the engine running warm.
That's correct. So we're in the process now of manufacturing a tank like the original one,
Oh, great.
and it'll have the cooling tubes in it. We've got the engine up here in place, and we're not really going to continue the repair on the engine mount until we get the tank built, because we may find that this engine mount had been done after the original oil
Really,
tank
yeah.
had been removed, and we may have to alter the engine mount a little bit to accept the oil tank.
Great.
The rest of the firewall here, that as we refer to as a firewall is really not a firewall as firewalls are in airplanes today. Today, the pilot or the cockpit area is completely shielded by stainless steel, a sealed bulkhead to protect the cockpit from any engine fires. The Ford, unfortunately, does not have that type of protection. And it's important that we do everything we can with the engine and the oil to make sure that there isn't a problem
Keep it
arise.
as safe as possible.
And we did, to go another step farther, we put stainless steel in the areas that were aluminum before, so that the fire at least won't burn through those areas.
Great. I
we did improve it.
really hate to have my tennis shoes melted.
I think you could get scorched if you had an engine fire. Here's an example of the flattening of the corrugation, the termination of the corrugation we saw on the machine. You see how they're folded in, and then the flat skin mates up to it very nicely.
That gets riveted there with this over here.
That's correct.
That's interesting. I always thought it was fascinating, the the control horns for the elevator and the rudder here were outside the
Yeah, and the
airplane.
cables actually go from front to rear on the outside.
That is-
People always ask about that when they see the airplane. What are those? Well, those are the control cables. Really?
Unbelievable.
Do you remember the rivet thing?
Yes, I do. That was,
About 7 years ago, you came in and you looked at it, and it had 470 rivets on it.
yep, the brazier. Not the brazier,
No,
but the
not
universal
head
rivets, yeah.
rivet. And you asked about the 430 rivets, and of course they weren't available, and I told you that.
Originally, the airplane had round head
It did.
and 430 rivets.
Big old round heads like these.
Yeah. I picked out the fact that when you rebuilt the airplane the first time, they had the AN 470
That's correct.
universal ones, and I seem to remember saying, Maurice, these aren't original rivets, are they?
That's right. And we talked about it a little bit and decided that we probably could convince somebody to make rivets for us
Yeah,
if we were
because they
willing
weren't,
to
they,
wait.
they weren't available.
They weren't available. And I remember you looking back across the airplane with the rivets that had already been put in it and saying, could we actually remove those rivets and replace them with 430s? I said, yes. And you said, well, what do you think that would cost? I said, about $25,000. And you said, do it.
Unbelievable.
And we did.
Well, that's the way it should be.
That's the way it should be.
And actually, I think it's been because other people now that are having their trimotors rebuilt can now get the original
That's
rivets.
right.
So,
And you feel those, you and I know,
yeah.
and so does every aviation person who really knows anything about airplanes, know by the feel and the look that those are 430s. And that's what they were using on airplanes in the 1920s.
I just think it's important to rebuild the airplanes back the way they were, as original and authentic as possible. And we had the possibility with the rest of them, as soon as we could get the rivets made, and have access to them, to use them. And it was really a matter of basically drilling all the rivets out forward of the, where the damage was the first time.
Which we do as a matter of course anyway with airplane repairs. And then of course, we ordered the original icebox rivets.
So these are D rivets.
Yes, and we actually run them the temperature up to 950 degrees for a period of time, and then remove them and quench them, put them in the freezer, and we use daily. Makes them soft
makes them
and
soft.
easy to drive in this really thin material.
And then
That's
once they're driven and they age harden, they become
In about
harder
90
than-
hours, they revert back to original hardness. That's correct.
Oh, that's great. Well, you're doing a great job, and I think this airplane's going to be a great asset to Fantasy of Flight, and it's so original and authentic.
Well, we really enjoy working for you, Kermit. We respect your desire to be authentic, and we believe that this particular airplane deserves authenticity. So we appreciate the job.
I can't wait to come back and see you the next time.
Thank you. We enjoy working for you,
That's
Kermit.
great.